Hello, neighbor. I'm Robert Burns, and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And we have as our guest today, we haven't seen him since prior to the election, Mr. Billy Broussard. And I can just say that, Mr. Broussard, I know for a fact that you had a big smile on your face after the results of the election, because you kind of hit on all cylinders. You supported Jeff Landry for governor. You supported Blake Miguez for state senator, and both of whom won commandingly. Jeff Landry without even the need for a runoff, and Blake Miguez, soon to be Senator Blake Miguez, only had one opponent, so that naturally there wasn't going to be a runoff, but he run very, very authoritatively. And then last but not least is the very gentleman that you appeared on Sound Off before, and that being sheriff candidate in Cameron Parish, Michael Hebert. And you mentioned that in the prior election, Mr. Hebert fell a little short, and you attributed that to the situation that happened with you, and that may be the case again. Now, Chris Savoy is soon to be the sheriff of Cameron Parish, because Mr. Hebert did fall a little short. He lost 57 to 43 to Mr. Savoy, so we're doing a little follow-up. You can comment on any one of those elections. I would imagine that you may want to lead off with that sheriff's race in Cameron Parish, but let's have you take the floor.
After we did that reporting, I got some feedback from different people from that area. And it's very important, especially when you're dealing with a disaster, information, regardless of what it is. That evidence is very important to everyone involved, constituents, FEMA, GOSAP, state, everyone. Mm-hmm. In saying that, I think that was very improper. I mean, still to this day, we don't have a supplemental report.
Don't have a supplemental report, right?
Of, not to get into weeds about it, but it's something that where the previous director of GOSAP came forward and said, look, here's the truth, here's the facts. And even though Michael Hebert at the time with state police had a report that was very well put together, mm-hmm. Then same guy that used his information in the previous report, which was Kevin Davis, director of GOSAP, comes back and says, nope, this is the truth, these are the facts. That's all held in Calcasieu Parish with the district attorney.
Correct.
And the team at GOSAP. So,
and you indicated we won't get into the weeds, but we're going to give the link for that prior feature, because you did kind of get in the weeds on that. So anybody who wants to get the full background on it, I would strongly encourage you to go, because it's not a long video, but that'll give you the background. But you mentioned that, and we know it from that prior feature, that Mr. Hebert simply said, I'm not supplementing my report. Am I correct?
Right, and I think exactly it, and that is a very important, moving forward at this particular point. From my point of view of dealing with these things in regards to the state, the whole state across the board in Louisiana, it's a very important issue where district attorneys have, well, let me back up a little bit, where state police, I have to admit, I have to say this, I had a meeting with who is now going to be our colonel, Robert Hodges.
Ah, you met with him, okay.
I met with him. Really, really nice gentleman. I have to say, I like him very much. I actually pulled for him every way I could. I heard that there's a chance that he may be being considered for that position. I was text messaging certain ones, thumbs up. Well, interesting, I was able to have a meeting with him about that exact matter with Michael Hebert about supplementing the report, and I learned a lot. So in saying that, after I sat down with him and he, we had the meeting that we had, and he showed me different things through our conversation that kind of felt a little bad for Michael Hebert at that point, knowing that it wasn't all his fault.
Okay.
Especially when, and it's hard, and it doesn't help state police when state police is maybe possibly trying to do a thorough investigation and trying to do the right thing, but you have number one cop, they call it top cop of the area, the district attorney, that can control, apparently they control state police, tell them what they can, in some cases, what they are going to do in their investigations, which I understand them having, they're the prosecutor, but to be able to control state police, telling them what they're gonna and not going to investigate, or what they're going to take as evidence, even though there's information there, but it's not counted as evidence in previous cases. I mean, things you reported on, that it's not evidence until the district attorney wants it and puts it in his package to consider that as evidence. Other than that, it's just some information somewhere. So I have to say, I learned a lot from Hodges there, and I learned a lot what his point of view, which I would take away from that meeting, that he felt the same way, that it's not fair to the troopers to be able to do their investigations, because he explained to me that when they have an issue in an area, they go to the district attorney before they even do a deep investigation, because they don't want to invest a bunch of time in it. But the district attorney says, nope, I'm not going to prosecute that. And that creates a major problem. So in my case, I took it out a lot on Mike Waybear that, hey, because he's the one I'm dealing with, I need you to supplement this report. He refused to. Come to find out from what I'm being told and understand that it was the district attorney's office that told him, do not supplement your report.
And at that time, the district attorney in Calcasieu Parish was John DeRosier, correct?
Exactly.
And let me just say this. You have indicated that you plan to play an active role and testify in committee meetings at these upcoming special session of the legislature with regard to crime prevention. And for folks who may not know this, back in 1978, Louisiana enacted a constitutional amendment, and it basically took the jurisdiction away from the Attorney General's office, and basically placed handcuffs on the Attorney General's office and relegated original jurisdiction to the DAs. And so, and that's been the case for 45 years now. And so at present, and it's been this way for 45 years, the DA has to agree to allow the Attorney General to come in and investigate or to prosecute a given matter. And I'd like to get your thoughts, because I have my thoughts about it. I think it's been a disaster. And I think what it has enabled is corruption at the DA level throughout the state. And I think you probably can serve as a poster child of being on the receiving end of that corruption. And that's not to even mention the fact that at the very same time that you were having your dealings, he was running what I consider to be a highly illegal, basically gift card money laundering operation. And it's not just my thoughts on that. That's basically the way our Inspector General labeled it. And there was a major article on it. But one of the things that I would really love to see come from this upcoming special session is for Les to undo that. Just because, the same way you can enact a constitutional amendment, you can enact another one to undo it, because I think we made a serious mistake. I was not even eligible to vote then. I was too young. I know you were barely born. So, but we had the ability to fix it. And my thought is, I would love to see a constitutional amendment to give the Attorney General back power that I believe it needs to have, if for no other reason, to provide a checks and balances on these district attorneys. I've said a lot. You chime in, Mr. President.
And it helps the district attorneys because of local politics. I had meetings with, at the time he was with the Attorney General's office, Justice Evers and Senator Mills. And Senator Mills said, with all this laid out, why doesn't the district attorney over there handle this? He said, I remember Justice just kind of leaning back and well, I don't know what the politics are over there. So it's politics, and it's not, and it takes a lot of pressure off of a district attorney when he goes, hey, I'm sorry, whoever it is he's dealing with in his, constituent, whoever that might be, a very political, powerful person, says, hey, this is being overseen by the Attorney General's office. So at that point, it takes a lot of pressure off of a district attorney in regards to someone trying to control him.
Well, and I think you're accurate. Let's put it this way. If there are no shenanigans, the Attorney General can be a very helpful and useful tool. If there are shenanigans, well, it's going to be a power play, and the DA is not going to relinquish control. And that's exactly why I'm saying we need to undo what was done in 1978. And I think a perfect time for that is in this upcoming special legislative session. And I think that Jeff Landry can score a number of huge favorable points were he to get behind that effort. So,
and I believe he's acting on it now. I mean, we saw
the cooperative endeavor agreement with Orleans Parish, a perfect example. But here's the key thing. He had to be willing. He had to be a willing participant in that. I'm talking about getting the constitutional amendment back to where they do not have the ability to block that sort of thing.
We need it to be the law of the land, the Constitution, period, not just waiting for some district attorney to agree or disagree to a cooperative endeavor agreement. So, I mean, Governor-elect Jeff Landry.
You can call him governor. It's close enough now.
Well, he's taking the bull by the horns. I mean, he's really teamed up with, and I appreciated watching the district attorney of New Orleans, his attitude with that.
Yeah.
He was all on board. Because, I mean, and so you take two different people, like you said, two different parties. I mean, the guy said, hey, look, I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican. There are differences there, but hey, we can agree on this. If it was so great what they did 45 years ago, why are we in the situation that we're in now? Why are they even considering this cooperative endeavor agreement? Not just considering, going to do it, because it's a problem. When New Orleans became the capital, murder capital of the country, it's like, okay, maybe we need to, admit that we have a problem. It's not, and why do we have to? If we using that pattern, it could be used as a perfect pattern. If the governor-elect and the district attorney of New Orleans feel that it needs to be done in New Orleans, what difference than every other?
Baton Rouge has a crime problem.
Yeah, everywhere has a crime problem. So, and there's a lot of white crime that this could really fix. The white crime problem, meaning white collar crime.
White collar, yeah. Let's make that clear. Yeah.
And in saying that, he's using. I mean, he's got the bull by the horns. New Orleans is a perfect example, but just do it across the board. Just go in. Now's the time you ask me to do it. To use that hey, and he sees it. If not, he wouldn't be doing this cooperative endeavor agreement with the district attorney in New Orleans. So I'm excited about that. I think, with all the players involved, I'm sorry it didn't work out for Michael Abear as sheriff. Maybe in the future, I still hope that maybe one day they'll supplement the report. At the same time, I'm happy about Hodges, now going to be the colonel, and I think his. I have to say, he was very much a gentleman. I believe things are going to change, and seeing the way that he felt about how district attorneys were controlling state police, I think he would be in favor of that change back the way it was back 45 years ago. Also, so
Well, and if nothing else, obviously, I want sound off to be known as if you have something to sound off on, you get to sound off, because trust me. And I'm sure you know this, it's no secret, never tried to hide it. An awful lot of current troopers and recently departed troopers are extremely unhappy with the duo of Frank Besson and Robert Hodges. So I'm glad to at least be able to portray that we got one gentleman that believes it may be a shining light. And I want to say one other thing. We're going to have a number of upcoming features with regard to current matters that are active at state police. And I'm going to be blunt about it. I believe that one of the upshots of a Hodges regime may be that some of the foolishness that we've had in the terms of hearings at that state police commission may no longer take place, because they never should have taken place in the first place, because the discipline never should have been handed down. All right, and it's no secret that we'll be doing a follow-up feature on Lieutenant Russell Graham. I'll go ahead and get that out there right now. I've never seen anything more ludicrous in my life than that particular hearing. And I think I can safely say that had there not been, and I'm going to be as kind as I know how to be on this, a political backdrop to that, and I'm being kind, because I think everybody knows what I mean, there would not have been discipline in that, but there was an attempt to make a statement. And I'm just going to be blunt about this. I really do believe that the current administration, when I say current administration, I mean LSP administration, namely Chavez Cameron and Lamar Davis, they genuinely thought that Mr. Wilson was going to win the governor's race and that everything could just continue right along. Well, that's now known that that's not going to be the case. So I believe there is one upshot to this changeover. At least I hope that's going to be a side benefit, because we have had an ungodly number of man hours wasted on absolutely ridiculous hearings that never should have taken place. And there's some that are still pending. And I'm not sure whether a new colonel can go in and override a prior colonel and the decision. Maybe we'll just have to test those waters as we come to them. And forgive me for taking a little bit of time, but I'd like to say one thing. You mentioned the supplemental report and how critical that is.
Yeah, very much.
Very much. And I want to just say this, and I'm pausing because I'm going to be blunt. I took a lot of heat, and I do mean a lot of heat, on the feature that I did with regard to Lieutenant John Clary. And that's, as in the words of Calvin Braxton, hey, all that's fine. I'm a big boy, got a broad back. I can take the heat, okay? But I want to stress one thing. Nobody attacked the factual content of what I had in that feature. And what's in that feature, to boil it down to its simplest terms, is there was an indictment handed down based upon a supplemental report. So my point is, yeah, supplemental reports are very often needed, and they were needed in this matter, but it's important that the supplemental report be accurate, okay? And that particular supplemental report was simply not accurate when it falsely blamed Lieutenant John Clary for having, and I quote, concealed a video for almost 2 years, okay? He did not do that, okay? And so when that kind of material is placed into a supplemental report and then conveniently leaked to the media, not just a little media outlet like Sound Off, but to a major media outlet like the Associated Press, what ends up happening is you tarnish a gentleman's name based on completely false material, to the point that he gets indicted, all right? And you know, most people, when they find out that somebody has reached a deal, quote, a deal, and put that word in quotes, with a district attorney, the typical reaction is, oh, he saw, man, they had the goods on him, and he finally saw the light, and it was time for him to turn the tables, you know, and say, all right, I'm going to testify against my other defendants. You know, and that's kind of the perception that got perpetrated out there with regard to John Clary. It's completely false, okay? And that feature made that clear. The reality is that that his attorney, Clary's attorney, Kyle Green, pushed for the earliest possible trial date after he had made a motion for obtaining some material from the grand jury. But the important thing is he was going to get cremated if he had gone forward with that trial. Why do I say that? Because we have the Axon logs that show who all accessed this video. We have testimony that it was discussed in early October. At least that's what Mr. Paxton said with Scott Davis. It was Scott Davis who downloaded it. We have, for God's sakes, we have an internal affairs report that was based upon the video, the very video that Clary allegedly concealed, okay? And that gets used to then use a use of force report. And there were so many people that talked about and or watched this video that it would have been utterly laughable for John Belton to have even tried to go into court. It would have been, I mean, it would in some ways I kind of wish it hadn't happened to me in the agreement, because I'd like to say a complete train wreck, you know, to see just how bad this would have been. So that is the reason that John Belton saw fit to dismiss the charges. And you look at the motion to dismiss, it's very simple. It's about 2 sentences. It said, upon motion of the state, the charges are dismissed. Okay, there's no conditions, this, that, and the other. Now, he has said that he will, if he is called to testify, he will testify truthfully. Well, that's the same obligation you or I have. Anybody else, if you are subpoenaed to testify, by God, you're supposed to tell the truth. Okay? So my point is, there is no plea agreement here, but I appreciate you allowing me to infringe on your time to say not only is it important to do a supplemental report when it's required, which they did not do in your matter.
Yeah, so I mean, what's any different? I mean, if he would have been prosecuted or indicted for not...
Well, he was indicted.
Indicted for not providing this information, and I believe all information, but should be considered evidence. They shouldn't be able to say, that's just some information. It's not evidence until the DA
has it. And so you're correct. You're referring to John Peters, who was indicted for having said, look, don't turn this over to John Belton unless he asks for it. And said it's only evidence if he has it. Well, that indictment got dismissed, but and I've made some common sense commentary in the past. I hit my side of my forehead. I'm not on the camera now, so you may have heard me just do it again and said, well, gee, do you think it might have dawned upon him to ask? Yeah. So I genuinely believe that there needs to be an investigation into John Belton. I really believe that, because I have no idea, knowing the things that you either knew or certainly should have known, how you could have possibly proceeded forward with the indictment count against John Clary. And bear in mind, they had to pull it out of him like pulling teeth. At first it was so vague, it's like, well, you won't even tell us what he did. And so finally, when they get the clarity through the bills of the bills of particular, it's like, you got to be joking me, you know? And so it became a complete, I don't want to just say laughing stock, it's because it's beyond a laughing stock. But your point is well taken. When state police needs to do a supplemental report, they need to do it. And in your case, through whatever means, it didn't get done.
Right.
All right.
And I have to say, that was also mentioned with Hodges. Hodges was like, well, isn't there, this information could, grant a new trial. It's like, you're exactly right, but it's not even considered evidence until state police puts it in a supplement report. Now, that's again why I'm here today. I'm seeking the supplement report. So the supplement reports, that information can completely change and turn the tables. Because the first report, it was Kevin Davis's document saying this, and that. And then right after, however many months later, there's a meeting with Kevin Davis, with the district attorney, with state police there, saying, no, this is the truth. So if you say, yeah, but we're going to not supplement the report, we're just going to stick to this. It's like, well, that it's a completely different story. So yes, I agree, and all that information though should also be considered evidence, and it should all just be all the information
everything
should
exactly
be handed to the district attorneys, and hopefully in the future district attorney and the attorney general's office in regards to matters like this.
Well, yes, because I'm glad to know you agree with me, because we didn't discuss this prior to, or at least very little prior to, because believe it or not, we ad-lib most of this stuff. You may not believe it, but there's very little prep goes into these things. So that's something I believe strongly, that this state went backwards in 1978 when it enacted that constitutional amendment.
And he admitted, he said his office at one point, that's why he turned it over to the feds. He said, we're not even equipped to be able to take on it.
Well, now you're talking about Belton now.
Belton.
Yeah, as distinguished from,
Even that proves, though, that these district attorneys could use some help.
Sure.
If they want it or not. It's like, apparently, even that matter, he said, they weren't even equipped. So the Attorney General's office's overview and changing the law back is all the way around, could help this state, help the district attorneys, help the justice system, help our faith as a constituent, our faith in our justice system, because apparently there's some serious problems. And
well, and I'll wrap this up because we got a few minutes left. Another critical thing, and I feel certain you will agree with me on this one, because you just agreed with me on the other one, and I have pounded my fist on the table over and over and over and over again. And Governor Landry, I'm going to go ahead and say Governor too, because it's close enough. Governor Landry, if you're watching this, if you really want to make an impactful change on crime in this state, I would strongly urge you to initiate legislation that will call for cameras in the courtrooms. Transparency has done wonders in everywhere cameras are. Go into a legislative meeting, every bit of it is live streamed, and it's stored for years. You can go back and look at any given committee meeting, say from 9 years ago. You can go pull it up. But when it comes to the courtroom, never mind all the other states that managed to do this without any kind of problems, Texas being a prime example. It's always said, Texas is so much better, Texas is so much better, Texas is so much better. And the reality is they are. And one of the things Texas does allow, as does Georgia and other states, is they permit cameras in courtrooms. We don't. And I think that's a real problem.
And cameras is just transparency. People
cameras
have gotten aggravated with me because in the past I've recorded different meetings. A lot of people don't know.
They never know when you're recording a meeting.
And at this point, they don't know which meetings are recorded, which conversations we didn't. Interesting, a lot of the people involved now. Our governor, he was involved in my matter. We've had meetings with Blake Miguez involving.
Well, now that one we all know was recorded because the legislative auditor's office was kind enough to let me bring my video camera in there. We're not going to go into the details because we're wrapping up. But that's where you pointed out that the previous deputy director, said, well, there's times that we just had to get the legislative auditors to close their eyes, put their fingers in their ears, and we make sure there's no fingerprints on it.
He actually, right before that, said we have this certain. I think
we have this relationship with the legislature. They're embedded in our office.
Yes, I mean they're on the payroll. But so my point is not to pick on him for saying, maybe just for making the statement, but it's the fact of the matter that even the legislative auditor's office, if they have that type of relationship when they're supposed to be doing audits and checks and balances. So like I said before, your scales, that's not scales.
Yeah, you said, let me tell you what I think about your scales.
Yeah, just make sure your fingerprints are not on it. It's like, no, it's not your scales. And I have evidence now to support that they knew all along.
Oh, well, there's no question of that.
And so I'm very much looking forward to testifying before these committees, because trust me, I have so much information, it'll blow your mind. And all the players involved, everybody from our Governor-elect Jeff Landry, Blake Miguez, Hodges, so many different individuals that knew about this matter and I see them turning the tide that hey, they need to work with district attorneys, etc. I'm talking about the Attorney General's office. So I'm really excited about the future, and I'm with the testifying before these committees. If anybody knows, I know what it's like. And same thing with the gentleman you reported on about the supplement report. How you pronounce the last name? John
Clary.
John Clary. Mm-hmm. I loved when I saw that sound off. I was like, thank God, an innocent man that was going to be hung. It's like, no, evidence proved the man was. They couldn't hang him. I mean, but in the meantime, all those years, public news, etc. I mean, that was across the country. This man's name was just pushed into.
Oh my God!
I mean. I don't see how he took it for that period of time to be able to, but I think
it's commendable that
when any person gets to walk out of the prison, they say the DNA proved that they and he's been in there for 30 years. You go, oh my God, I mean, his whole life was wasted, but at least he's able to get out. So the point is, it doesn't matter if it's a state trooper. I love the fact when someone's innocent and they're, and evidence proves that, hey, I'm innocent.
Well, and I want to just wrap it up with just saying one thing. I think some people may have misconstrued that feature to think that I was somehow coming to the defense in any way of what happened to Ronald Green. No, absolutely not. But what I am saying is when I see anyone who has been falsely accused, their name dragged through the mud, he was basically tried in the media, until it came time to have the actual trial.
I have to interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
You also mentioned that the timing. You said seconds, because it's a video, but it's also a video. It wasn't like he was there from the beginning of this incident. I say incident, I mean it was terrible. But the thing is this was much after the fact.
Now, exactly. I'm glad you said that.
So it wasn't even not that his camera didn't catch all that. He wasn't there.
He wasn't even there. Correct.
So the point is his innocence. I mean, you come on a scene like that, you don't know what happened.
You don't know what happened.
So,
yeah.
I mean, he's looking back saying, "Oh my God, that's what y'all did." I mean, but he didn't know at the time. He just drove up. I mean, how many minutes later?
Well, and that's a critical point too. That we're going to go a little bit into overtime on this because I'm glad you brought that up. We're talking about 4:20 a.m. in the morning. He has downloaded the critical videos. What I mean by that is the Dakota DeMoss video, which is the damning video that shows the initial approach of the officers. The Hollingsworth video, which is the I beat the ever living F out of him. And I don't want to speak for John Clary, but it's entirely possible that he was saying that. Look, I mean, he turns that over. Nobody disputes it. He turns it over. But he might have been said, I don't have any video of that, the encounter. And then his video would be readily accessible because he turns right around and uploads it within minutes.
But at the time, he probably said, well, my video is not going to show everything that happened.
Well, of course it's not.
Because I got there so many minutes after the fact. So
11 minutes to be precise.
At the tail end, Ronald Green's still on the ground, but at that, he don't know what happened.
Correct. And let me just say this. That goes to your very point, and I'm not going to name the media outlet. I'm just not going to. But the statement was made in the article that Clary arrived, quote, within seconds, unquote. Well, if you consider 660 to be within seconds, because that's how many seconds are in 11 minutes, that's not my definition of within seconds. Yeah. So I've got a real issue. I'm a big believer in the press and transparency, but I've got a real issue with distorting. And I'm sorry to put in there that Clary arrived, quote, within seconds is, unquote, is materially misleading. So, folks, we covered a lot today. I know it's never a dull moment with you, Billy Broussard, whether it be, a situation with your pond, your is it 13? No, it's 32 acres.
33, yeah.
33 acres. This matter, you never fail to disappoint in making a discussion lively, and you've certainly done so today. And I know you're going to be able to do that in your upcoming testimony in front of these committees as we look to enact some crime reform legislation. Can't wait to help. I think you said one team, right?
Oh yeah, one team.
Well, one team.
Little Jeff Landry, one team.
All righty, folks. We will see you again soon for another edition of Sound Off Louisiana in the very near future. Thank you so much.